Greetings tonight, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to discuss about the intimate dance between the dark and the light. And I wanted to talk about this because we are experiencing a lot of chaos right now in the world, and especially in America. And we are always actually experiencing a lot of darkness in our lives. And we have this saying that has been kind of passed down through these mystery schools. And it's kind of an occultic knowledge that I wanted to pass down to you, but really it stems from Eastern philosophy of the yin and yang idea of polarity. And it is about how all darkness is in service to the light. Now, you may see that, and you may see it from some esoteric or occultism, and you think that, oh, well, that's saying that the dark is actually doing good things. Well, it's not that we will say that the dark is actually doing the right thing in terms of how we would judge something moral and immoral, but unconsciously, those that are dark workers and those that do dark things in this world are actually servicing the light because they bring forth an awareness to you of what is right, what is good, what is truth, what is moral. And so all darkness actually is in service to the light. And it is a type of place of consciousness that if you get to and you feel this really resonates with you, it can really help you in life, because then you are coming from a place of non-duality and non-judgment of others. And so this can really give you peace when you are experiencing chaos in the world. And you can actually stand up and you can take your role as an activist, or you could sit back and watch things unfold. But you will know deep in your heart that really all of the darkness that is going on and that you see and observe is always in service to enlightenment and awareness of the human being, of the spirit of you and your consciousness, and becoming aware through seeing the darkness. I don't know if many of you know this, but I actually had my awakening through seeing the darkness in the world. I did not come through a spiritual awakening by seeing the light. No, I saw it through the darkness. And through the darkness and processing that information and starting to understand what the darkness represents, I then had my spiritual awakening. And so that was about 15 years ago that I started seeing all this darkness in the world. So some of you may see this, and I'm not going to tell you what side is dark and what side is light. We're going to discuss more about how these type of energies work in the world. And I have this wonderful book by Allan called The Watercourse Way, and it has a lot to do with Taoism. So if any of you are Taoists, and if you know about that, it's a Chinese philosophy. So it's not a religion, although some people can maybe consider it a spiritual path. It's more a philosophical idea that the Chinese had part of their culture for a very long time, which actually emphasizes living in harmony with all things. So they're very much into the yin-yang polarity and the idea of polarity as a law of the universe. So I'm going to read you this great part here from Allan, and it's about the yin-yang polarity. At the very roots of Chinese thinking and feeling, there lies the principle of polarity, which is not to be confused with the ideas of opposition or conflict. In the metaphors of other cultures, light is at war with darkness, life with death, good with evil, and the positive with the negative. And thus, an idealism to cultivate the former and be rid of the latter flourishes throughout much of the world. We always want to get rid of the evil and, preserve what's good. To the traditional way of Chinese thinking, this is as incomprehensible as an electric current without both positive and negative poles. For polarity is the principle that positive and negative, north and south, are different aspects of one and the same system, and that the disappearance of either one of them would be the disappearance of the entire system. So you cannot have the dark without the light and the light without the dark, otherwise the entire system disappears. It's kind of an interesting way to think about it. People who have been brought up in the aura of many other religions, aspirations, find this very frustrating because it seems to deny any possibility of progress, an ideal which flows from their linear, as distinct from a cyclic view of time and history. Indeed, the whole enterprise of Western technology is to make the world a better place, to have pleasure without pain, wealth without poverty, and health without sickness. But, as now is becoming obvious, sometimes our violent efforts to achieve this ideal with such weapons as penicillin or nuclear energy or automotive transportation or computers, industrial farming, damming, and compelling everyone by law to be superficially good and healthy are creating more problems than they solve. We have been interfering with a complex system of relationships which we do not understand. And the more we study its details, the more it eludes us by revealing still more details to study. As we try to comprehend and control the world, it runs away with us. Instead of chafing at this situation, a Taoist would ask what it means. What is that which always retreats when pursued? Answer, yourself. Idealists, in the moral sense of the word, not philosophical, regard the universe as different and separate from themselves, that is, as a system of external objects which needs to be controlled. Taoists view the universe as the same as, or inseparable from themselves. So the Lao Tzu would say, without leaving my house, I know the whole universe. This implies that the art of life is more like navigation than warfare. For what is important is to understand the winds, the tides, the currents, the seasons, and the principles of growth and decay, so that one's actions may use them and not fight them. In this sense, the Taoist attitude is not opposed to technology per se. Indeed, the Lao Tzu writings are full of references to crafts and skills perfected by this very principle of going with the grain. The point is, therefore, that technology is destructive only in the hands of people who do not realize that they are one and the same process as the universe. Our over-specialization and conscious attention and linear thinking has led to neglect or ignorance of the basic principles and rhythms of this process, of which the foremost is polarity. In Chinese, the two poles of cosmic energy are yang, positive, and yin, negative, and their conventional signs are respectively a negative and a positive. The ideograms indicate the sunny and sunny sides of a hill, fu, and they are associated with the masculine and the feminine, the firm and the yielding, the strong and the weak, the light and the dark, the rising and the falling, the heaven and earth. And they are even recognized in each everyday matters as cooking, as the spicy and the bland. Thus, the art of life is not seen as holding to yang and banishing yin, but as keeping the two in balance, because there cannot be one without the other. And I will read here this last part. Thus, the yin-yang principle is that the somethings and the nothings, the ons and the offs, the solids and the spaces, as well as the wakenings and sleepings, and the alterations of existing and not existing, are mutually necessary. How one might ask, would you know that you are alive unless you had once been dead? How can one speak of reality or isness except in the concept or context of the polar apprehension of void? So this is the basic idea of polarity. And I have a other video that talks about the law of polarity in the universe and how you can use it to apply to your life. But this video is kind of done at this time because we're in 2021 and this is the year where we're going to see lots of different changes. We will see a new government system, whatever side puts themselves into it. We will see all these changes in society happen. And we must always remember that if we go in flow, if we are not always in a state of opposition, but we go in flow with what aligns to our heart and what we want to follow and see, then we can enjoy the process that is unfolding right before us. And really what we are here to experience is this dance between the darkness and the light. And one thing that we all know, as Nietzsche said in a famous quote in his book, Good and Evil, or Beyond Good and Evil, this is a great quote that makes so much sense, is that this is actually right here, that which is done out of love is always beyond good and evil. So we can always understand how to go beyond light and dark when we get in touch with love, which is really understanding as an action towards others. And St. Francis of Assisi said, all the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle. So no matter how dark it may seem, it is always moving towards making light or bringing light. And that will be done through those that recognize the darkness. So at a very high level, we can actually get to a point where we can show gratitude or appreciation for even those that have been the dark workers or have shown the darkness, because without them, we would not know the light. But we should never allow the axe to keep going on earth, because that's when darkness spreads. It is all about balance. So we don't want darkness to spread, and we also don't want to get rid of darkness, because we will also get rid of light too. So what we want to do is really balance and help to transform the other sides when they are going through their awakening and seeking for the light. But one thing to know is that in the material world, we will experience always this polarization, always this dark and light, chaos and order. This dance is there in the material world. But in the spiritual realm, in the realm in which we truly feel we come from, then there is a state of non-duality where we are one with everything. And if you believe like the Buddhists do and the Taoists, then you will understand this oneness is what they search for and what they seek for. And also mystics too. It is divine union with the one. And that does not mean to try to banish the dark or evil, but rather to show the evil and the darkness its light, to transform it by inspiring, educating, and showing what it really is. Because a lot of the dark workers in this world and a lot of those that put forward darkness are really unconscious of themselves. They are completely divided from others. They're not one with all. They're not one with others different from them. So it is the ones that are awakened to unity and they're awakened to love. It is then their job to inspire that transformation in others. And so it happens naturally. You don't really have to work at it except for just being yourself. So being a light worker can come very easily when you're just naturally who you are as an awakened being that has transformed their own darkness, their shadow self. They have reached a state of healing with, and they have transformed those areas into the light with awareness. When I'm talking about light and darkness, it really does mean unconscious versus awareness, because all evil, all violence, all hatred, all of that in this world is done on an unconscious level, that they are one with everyone else, and that what you do to another, you do to yourself. They are completely unconscious of that. But when you have your awakening and you have this consciousness and awareness that you are one with everything, you no longer seek to hurt others. You may have maybe some mistakes, and maybe you might forget yourself, and you might have some emotional responses. But once you turn on that light and you have that spiritual awakening that you are one with all, then it is very difficult for you to really digress into unconsciousness. It's just that you might slip a little bit, and then you might have to remember once again, and then you can apologize, or you can heal yourself, or you can make amends and reach that state of redemption within yourself. But this is important to know as we go through all of this. And I wanted to give you this bit here from the Alchemy book. It has a whole chapter on light and darkness. I'm not going to go through it tonight. This video is not going to be too long, because I do want to chat with you all. And this is a bit from Jacob Boehm. This book is, if you have not watched my other videos on the mysticism and alchemy, these are picture puzzles. And so they have all these pictures that are supposed to make you remember something about yourself. And it's supposed to trigger your subconscious, which has both the monsters that you repress in terms of, the shadow self. It also has the divine in the subconscious. The divine self is in the subconscious. So when we see movies, or we hear certain messages, or we get an intuitive hunch, we are getting a message from the subconscious to let us remember our true selves again, so that we can awaken when it is time. After we have had so much suffering and pain, we then are ready to move into a new dream, basically, or a new phase of life. So this part here is all about light and darkness. And it says this: in 1600, at the age of 25, according to the testimony of his pupil and biographer Abraham von Frankenberg, the shoemaker Jacob Boehm was seized by the divine light, and at the sudden sight of a pewter vessel, the sweet, jovial gleam led to the innermost ground or center of secret nature. By Boehm's own account, he had broken through the portals of hell for the duration of a quarter of an hour. I recognized and saw in myself all three worlds, and recognized the whole of being in evil and good, and the way one originates in the other. I saw through as into a chaos with everything in it, but I could not undo it. He recognized that all things consist of yes and no, and these are not two things side by side, but only one thing, were it not for these two, which are in constant conflict, all things would be nothing, and would stand still and motionless. So that sounds very similar to Taoism. So it seems like the alchemy and mystics that you might consider to be the Illuminati or the Luminous, or those that were part of the secret service, the societies, they have actually used Eastern philosophy to inspire them to these points of awakening into understanding balance of light and dark. So there's a connection right there. And that's proof that everything is really connected. And we always inspire each other. So we have a great power to inspire each other with. And I'll even say another connection, which is interesting. Tolkien has an actual quote in his books talking about how if you go to the elves for counsel, they will tell you yes and no. So it seems like Tolkien also had this idea of balance and allowing people to have their choices. Because if you get rid of one side, you are then dominating over others and you will destroy the whole system. That's the idea. And the way I would look at it is this, is that if the good side, if you want to say the good side, started to try to dominate over what they perceive as evil, well, it would actually transform the good side into the evil side. And you may see this happening. Those that have very strong religious values in them and deem others as evil, you have seen justification of murder for that fight against evil. And do you see? Then the light becomes the dark when they are not awakened to all is one. So there is really a false light or a false sense of goodness and morality when you are not in balance and not one with everything. And you may see this happening right now. We have very strong religious ideals of what is right and what is wrong. But the truth is to see all is one, and then that will bring you more of a sense of understanding others. That actually brings in the true power of love. And with love, as Nietzsche said, it can go beyond the ideas of good and evil, and it can represent the true divine that is in a state of non-duality. So if this helps you, maybe it can help you in terms of soothing yourself during these times and taking a stance of non-judgment, although you observe everything around you and you see what's going on, and understand what is about valuing life and what's about not valuing life, what is about dominating over free wills and what's not about dominating over free wills. And that sense of freedom that we give to others is really the heart of goodness and love. So that's how the light transforms into the dark, is when they become overbearing and dominating and tries to control the free will of others. And the darkness can find the light again through stories of personal transformation and through awareness and self-revelation, that doing what they have done before to others, harming them, hurting themselves, no longer feels right. And then they will transform into the light. So it can be shared. You see that the good and the evil are within each other. It really depends what part of us we show. And you may feel this inside of you too. It's that you go through your life and you've had so many dark events happen to you. Many of us have experienced a lot of suffering and pain, but maybe you can get to a point where you can actually feel gratitude for those dark times in your life because they have shown you the light. In some way, having that dark event has made you into who you are, a stronger person, maybe more understanding and more loving towards others. But really, it's about having this awareness after you go through the darkness, and that is the light. The light is awareness and awakening yourself to your true self, where you're no longer in the dark. So I have seen this own transformation in my own life through my own dark events. And we see the micro in the macro. So the microcosm to the macrocosm, what's inside of us as far as the battle of dark and light, it also shows outwards into the world. The more polarized you are, in terms of dividing yourself to one side or another, you will always see more conflict trying to fight you. So if you polarize yourself to just the light side with prejudgments and assumptions that others are evil, even though you're one with everyone, you will experience a conflict that is going to battle you. And if you're on the other side of what is perceived as darkness, and you are experiencing yourself as doing harm to others and evoking chaos and things like that, you will experience the other side battling you. They think they're warriors for the light, so they're going to battle you about that. But there is a place of non-duality where you can actually stand in the middle of that fight between dark and light. And actually that is the true light, because that is the light of non-duality, the objective place of where the Creator would be, to love all beings and all souls equally, even those who may do evil or good. All are equal in the eyes of God. That is what we have heard. So when you are in a state of equality towards your fellow beings, you have reached a state of godhood, of deeper understanding, and you are actually looking at the world and the universe through the eyes of what people call God. That is your objective self that is able to stand in between areas of the good and the light sides fighting and be a mediator between the two, and bring in transformation to both sides in whatever way they need. So that is kind of what is happening right now. And it helps you in your own life to understand this dance. The darkness is always in service to the light, to the enlightenment and the illumination of the self. Although the darkness might be unconscious of it, I have met some dark workers that have been very conscious of their work in the world. They know what they are doing, but there are a lot of people that are unconsciously playing that role of dark, and they don't know it yet. And then when they have their awakening, that's when they move over into the light. But we need to make sure that the light side, or those that perceive themselves part of the light, if they start judging and damning and condemning and fighting those that are actually one with them, before, I understand the difference between self-defense, but that is in the present moment. But if you're jumping to assumptions and judging others for being evil and they are one with you, do you see how the light then transforms actually into the dark? So then the light side is actually not full of light anymore. It's part of the darkness, unconscious of itself, that is united with all. So I just wanted to give that message today. We can talk about this in the comments, and that is definitely what can help you in life. I have gotten to this place of just remembering all of this. And so I can take my role as what I choose, but at the same time, I am not getting so emotionally upset or full of anxiety or fear. I understand this dark and light dance that is happening, and I understand what people are doing. But I also know that if I start oppressing others and trying to dominate others and trying to control their free will and control them, then I am just turning into the darkness as much as I thought that others were dark. So it's important to stay true to the light, and staying true to the light means to be understanding and loving to all those that you can. And that has a power of transformation. It truly does. We see this in personal stories of transformation. It is love that brings them forward into the right path for them and brings them more joy in their life and makes them decide, oh, I no longer want to hurt others. So just remember that you have a powerful tool within you. All of you do. It is your love, your unconditional love that you can give others. And maybe it's not love. Maybe that's too romantic of an idea, and maybe that's too big for you. So start with friendship, start with compassion, and try to understand people from the place that they're at and their personal stories and perspectives. And that is what I have found that has really helped me in life. And I've just gone through personal transformations, understanding this and remembering this, and understanding that if you're one with everything, then you can actually become more of a positive manifestation projector into the world, in terms of you can actually help bring forwards the transformation of others. And each one of you have that power, I want to tell you right now. And you can do it on a bigger scale, or you can just do it with the people in your life. And so it just depends how much you want to put out your love and your friendship out into the world. But that is the true power that will transform all that you see, the darkness, instead of actually judging others and trying to battle others. You will find that it's a lot more peaceful this way, and it actually brings true transformation without those that are going to be in opposition to you. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I do see some comments. Thank you so much for the super chat. Who was that there? Oh, H7 Apollo. Thank you so much, Hanan Lay, which means thank you in Elvish for those that are new. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that that resonated with you and it helped you. Let's see. Any comments about, let's see. Yes, Miss Richie Rich. You can't have dark without light. Uncle, Uncle Ira? Oh, so that's somebody else who said that? Well, it's true. It's something that actually has been passed down through these mystery schools and these secret societies, but they have been based on these Eastern philosophical ideas, which also are part of Hinduism, Buddhism, and then Taoism is more of a philosophical idea. And so you see that. Siren of the Void, seeing our own shadows in others in darkness. Yes, that's exactly right. So that's part of it, is that when you transform yourself, where you're no longer a very non-judgmental person, you feel one with everything, you're actually helping to purify others. You'll actually experience that because your light is contagious. Your healing will actually be able to be spread to others, and it will inspire others to do healing as well. So yes, seeing our own shadows in others is exactly what happens. We just project a lot. And you can't have shadow without a source of illumination. Yep, exactly. Just like on a physical level. I love that. St. Francis, the idea that when you light a candle in a dark room, it really does illuminate everything. It doesn't matter how dark it is. You just need one source of light. That is all. And the darkness is there to bring forward the light. In fact, Tolkien has that, a couple quotes about how the darkest parts of the night bring out the brightest of the lights. You know, have you heard that quote? Let me get the exact one here. About the night, the darkest part of the stars, or the night with the moon. So that is, sorry, everyone. I think this is slow here. Yeah, my internet is kind of slow. I will put it down in the description for you because I'm getting pictures here and not the quote. But I remember that quote very well. The idea that It is about the darkest. There we go. Moonlight drowns out all but the brightest stars. The darkest nights produce the brightest stars. So it is all about the idea that the shadow is in service to the high beauty and the light that Tolkien was talking about. The dark night is in service to the brightness of the stars. We do not appreciate the brightness of the stars because we appreciate it, but we would not appreciate it if we didn't have the darkness of space. So we must always have the dark in order to see the light. So that is a level of understanding that you can reach, and that's when you can be a true source of light and transformation. And all of you have that power, and many of you are being called to use it today and during this time, because you may see what's actually going on and experiencing that. So that's all, I can say is that this is something that I have actually observed in my own life, and I have seen the power that friendship and love really have over trying to control or dominate or eradicate what is evil. Miss Richie Rich, if there is no dark and light, what so we see? Darkness? No. There's no dark. Lightness? No, there's no light. It's more, the way I see it is, I'm seeing it as like levels of light. So everything is light because on a physical level, everything is in light to the idea of energy and light particles, but there's different levels of it. So the non-duality, non-judgmental part of light is like the brightest source of illumination that you can even imagine. So beautiful, so overwhelming, so absolutely just spellbinding, if you could think about it. And then you have underneath that more of a dimmer light that is the pretend light, because it is about judgment. It is about the seeing only the duality. And so it is about putting on what Carl Jung said, this false figure of light and these kind of nondescript halos, and having a kind of a false sense of morality. That's a dimmer light to me than to the actual non-duality light. And then, of course, we have the dark and the dark. So I see it as different levels, Miss Richie Rich. I don't know if that can help you, but that's kind of how I understand it. So Merwinded, I don't think either is in service of the other one. I think that if they are, then they are in service to each other. Oh, I don't understand. That sounds like the same thing you're saying. I don't think either is in service of the other one. I think if they are, then they are in service to each other. You might have to explain that. That sounds like you're saying the same thing in two sentences. Maybe you can go through that a little bit more. There is fully good and fully evil that combat each other, and then there's gray at every point in between, and it's a give and a take relationship. Yes, but the thing about the light and the dark, because we are one, if we are persecuting or judging others, and we've seen this in the religious ages, in times where people were persecuted and branded as heretics, do you notice how those that perceive themselves to be good and working for God are actually not so good? They're actually killing people and they're hanging them and burning them. So that's not really full of light. They are actually only saying that they are on the side of light. So there is a difference. There is a difference. And I think that our world is starting to realize that. And that's why we have this kind of breakdown in a lot of different systems. But that's definitely how I see it. But yeah, more Wyndon, if you could say on the bottom, maybe that would be easier for me to understand maybe what you were saying. And Noreen, you've been having those calls of the void since childhood? I used to be really bad that I scared myself. Oh, so you scared yourself awake, basically? You know, the white supremacist that I was talking about the other day, he actually said that what made him awaken was having nothing but hate left in his heart. So imagine that state where you had to be at a place of hate, and then that made you awake. I actually awoke, I think, through fear. I think I awoke through fear because I was so fearful of what I was seeing as the darkness in the world that caused me to awaken myself. So I think I scared myself too, Naren. I think I did too. I scared myself awake. That's funny to say. And then Scorpion, I haven't seen you before. There's a Twitch streamer called Endstark who has elves and banish elves from his Twitch chat. Oh, that's neat. Yeah, and the light and the dark elves work together too. I liked when he was talking about the idea of decay and the idea of healing, because that's something that you also see in terms of fairies. They represent, so the dark fairies represent the darker aspects of nature, maybe the destructive ones, the protective, overly protective, the decay and basically the destruction. So we have that representing the dark fairies, and the light fairies represent the healing, restorative, renewal, life-giving aspects of nature. And so you see that with the light and dark elves. So I have a video on that too, if you are interested, Scorpion. If you want to hear more about the elves and light and dark too. But yes, this definitely can help you if you practice a state of non-judgment. Studying Taoism and Buddhism has definitely helped me, and it definitely, I think it can help you too. It's just a really nice reminder to go in flow of things and to really, kind of pick your battles in terms of if you're always in a state of opposition. I was just doing a video last night. That is one of the 108 defilements of Buddhism, which means that you won't find an easy path towards nirvana. And nirvana really just means feeling oneness with everything. It is a state of inner peace and inner calm where you feel one with everything. It's a state of being. And so opposition is actually one of the defilements that Buddhists talk about that keep you from that path. So just think about that. Naren, all people are fragments of fractals of a great metaphysical consciousness. I love that. Lovely. That's really great. That's a great way of thinking about it. I really do agree. Maureen, are you talking there? Okay, so I meant that you had said that dark is in service to the light. I was just saying that I don't think either is truly in service to either. They flow together, a balance that we need to learn from and learn wrong and right. Yes, but light in this case means awareness. So you do need awareness eventually. You cannot be in darkness because darkness in this term, in the way of philosophically understanding it, it means unconscious. So you don't want to be in darkness always. Because if you are in an unconscious state, then you do things that you will regret when you wake up and you realize. So it is about darkness is in service to the light in terms of actually being awakened. It is imperative that you awaken sometime and you're not staying in the dark, because if you stay in the dark, that just means that you haven't done your healing yet. So that's what it means in this context. But if you want to think the dark has its own properties and values, that's totally fine. But you don't want to be in the dark all the time, because then that just means that you're hurting yourself and you're hurting others. James, consciousness is not bound by causality because nothing created. It's always been the eternal now. Ooh, it's beautifully said there. And Noreen, you said you were talking about the calls of the void. When you think of dark or bloody things, aka walking off a cliff, killing someone in your imagination, cutting yourself in your mind's eye, oh, that can scare you. Yes, that definitely can scare you away. Yeah, I scared myself through seeing the conspiracies in the world. And I scared myself learning about that and seeing that and understanding that there's great darkness that is underneath things and that is hidden in the shadows. So I scared myself through that process. And then I brought myself to the light. And, it's just this slow awakening in that way. So I scared myself that way through conspiracy theories. And so today I consider myself conspiracy theory free because I don't judge or assume. I actually just look for the evidence and I make fair judgment based on that, of my experience, of my observations, rather than going towards theories, which in a scientific term, theory is really just something that hasn't been put to experimentation. It's just a theory. So just keep that in mind, that you have to experiment in order for it to actually become something that's actually a law in science. So you can kind of equate it to science and it helps. Arc 80, how do I find the light if all I feel is dark? Well, it just really depends on the person, but it is about just healing yourself, because what is dark is really just in shadow. It's just kind of been repressed and it has been hidden from you because it's too painful to look at. So you have to go into your past, your childhood. You have to go through that process of healing yourself. I did it through lots of things, seeking out self-help books and bringing myself to that place of kind of nurturing the inner child. I also did psychotherapy with a shaman. And so that really helped. And it kind of brought me onto this own path of shamanism. And so it is about you taking that first step, I would say. If you're somebody that's in dark and you want to find the light and you're just waiting for it, well, just know that you will not find the light without taking that very first move towards it. And it can be anything, Arc. It could quite literally be the first book you see on the bookshelf staring at you at a bookstore that is in the self-help section. It's there in your view, in your experience as a message to you. Follow the signs. Follow the signs that come to you. You just being here, part of this video, might help, maybe inspire you. And that's the step. So it's really just about being confident that you're already doing that work, and then you can move forwards into the next step too. And so it's really wonderful to see that you want to do that. I applaud you. It's courageous and brave. It really is, to even just admit, hey, there's some things that are dark about me, or that I don't understand why I'm not so happy, and why I don't have awareness of my true self yet. And then that's a great way to just make that very first step. So bravo. Morwinden, there is a kind of darkness I speak of. I don't think it's the same kind you speak of. No, it's not, Morwinden. We don't speak the same language. It's okay, though, because I'm speaking about it on a philosophical Carl Jung way. So if you want to learn more about the way that I'm speaking about it, look into Carl Jung. It is about the subconscious. It is about what lies hidden and what needs still healing. And I just see that more as a logical, practical way to understand darkness, because those that are in darkness usually have had some type of trauma in their life, and they just need healing. We see that with killers and with those that do violence and crime. They've actually had a really difficult life. There is some kind of pain and trauma that has been repressed, and it has made them angry. So I always look at it from a psychological, philosophical way. But yes, no, I don't think that we are seeing the dark elves or light elves the same, or the darkness and the light. But hopefully you understand now a little bit more about that, and you can Yeah, if you just look at Carl Jung, you'll understand where I'm coming from, because it really is about psychology. Because it's really just, I'm more interested in healing and bringing what was traumatic and painful of the past to the surface, transform that into realization through many different ways, and then bringing that to the light. So that's what that means. Siren of the Void, I have felt that connection and love for all things a few times. Yeah, and the more you do Siren of the Void, the easier it gets. It's about practicing, and it's just about keeping yourself in that state of awareness that allows you to make friends with people, to understand them, to look at their stories, look at their experiences before you just judge them. Arc 80, you're a master at this. Please don't stop making these. I've been angry for my whole life, but you make me feel I can do this. Oh my goodness, that's a wonderful compliment. Well, like I said, I'm just reflecting a part of you, an aspect of you, because we are one. So I'm happy to do this. And, you know, this is really what my channel is about. I've been through some things in my life. I've awakened through and you know, even awakened into my elven soul and remembered things. And so I'm just happy to help other people with what I have learned. So I'm truly, it's an honor to serve you today. That's great. I'm really happy. So I am going to be leaving you all a little bit early today. I don't know how long this video is, but thank you so much for stopping in. Just keep this in mind. If you are interested in this book, I will leave it down in the description. I found it on eBay, and it's just a wonderful book by Alan Watts. I love Alan Watts. I actually really enjoy Ram Dass and Alan Watts, but it really can help you kind of understand more about what's going on. And it can get you to a place where you are consciously above. So you're raising your frequency and your vibrations to a higher level where you're not experiencing the chaos. You're only observing it from the state of loving awareness. And then from there, you can make your decision of how you respond and what you do to help others. So thank you so much for watching, Han and Lei, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.